Good evening. I'm Lauren Herschel with BUILD, the Building Industry Land Development Association of Calgary Region. Welcome to the 1600 Block online engagement session, and thank you for joining us. I will be moderating tonight's session on behalf of Sarina Homes for their proposed development at 1632, 1636, and 1640 33rd Ave Southwest. I'll just go over a brief agenda for tonight and give some housekeeping rules to get us started. You are currently watching a pre-recorded video, which will continue for approximately 15 minutes, during which you will first hear from Nazim Varani, President of Sarina Homes, followed by Ward 8 Councillor Evan Woolley. You will then hear from Bob Van Wagen, Executive Director of the Marda Loop Business Improvement Area, and Talisha Wagner, Lead Architect for the project with Casala Cup. After the video, I will be moderating a Q&A session with our panel consisting of Nazim Varani and Max Parrish, Sarina Homes, Talisha Wagner and Tony Casola, Casola Cup Architects, Jared Friedman and Ryan Hall, the assigned city planners to the file. All resident participant videos and microphones are disabled, and we request that you submit your questions to the panel via the chat function, which you can find on the right-hand side of your screen by clicking Questions. You can submit your questions while you are watching the video presentation. However, you may want to wait to the end, as the presentations will likely give you the answers you are looking for. During the question and answer period, we will group similar questions together for efficiency. Presented materials will be shared with you by Sarina Homes following this session, and any unanswered questions can be fielded by email to max.parrish@sarinahomes.ca. I will now hand you over to Nazim, and I look forward to chatting with you all shortly.
Thanks, Lauren, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening for the neighborhood engagement session with respect to our proposed development 1600 West on the corner of 16th Street and 33rd Avenue Southwest. Over the past decade, we've been part of bringing new residents and vendors to the Marda Loop community who now proudly call Marda Loop home. Every single homeowner I speak with enjoy the amenities Marda offers, and most of all, they appreciate the walkability to local shops, the dog park, and the weekend farmers market. Our new neighbors just love living and working in Marda Loop. We are hoping that our 1600 West project will help bring even more neighbors and vibrancy to the 33rd Avenue Main Street. This street has been noted as a priority main street by the City of Calgary, and the city has significant plans in beautifying this street, making it more safe, making it more walkable over the years to come. These main streets are critical in defining our neighborhood character. The wider walkways are critical for mobility, like scooters, and maybe future hoverboards. And most of all, they're critical to bringing more neighbors and local businesses in making Marda Loop more sustainable. Our goal for 1600 West is to contribute to the vision of a world-class neighborhood Main Street. The 16th Street Crossway has the potential to be an interesting gateway leading people to the community center, the outdoor pool, and sea space. We're looking to design our building to respond to this gateway by programming workspaces along the ground floor that could serve the neighborhood with local personal services. These workspaces are mainly for services that are open during the daytime and close early evening. Services such as health and beauty, counseling services, and selective medical services such as chiro, physio, and massage. The ground floor workspaces are meant to bring activity during the day when most residents are away from their home working, and when residents come home in the evening, the ground floor workspaces would have less activity as most of the businesses would close by early evening. The ground floor uses are not meant to be high active retail such as restaurants or fitness centers. The development can also offer a place for local art and interesting wayfinding. As we progress with our designs, we're excited to engage with local art community members in seeking creative designs that can respond to enhancing this gateway and our proposed building. Thank you again for taking the time to engage with us. We look forward to hearing your thoughts and your ideas. Thank you.
Hi everybody, thanks for allowing me the opportunity to bring a few greetings. I hope everybody's having a good summer and has been able to get outside and enjoy some time with their loved ones and families. Everybody's staying healthy and safe. This is a new type of process of engagement, and I hope that everybody feels like it's a good one. If you feel like you need further engagement, please don't hesitate to reach out to my office. There's also a process within the planning department for you to engage with. The Marda Loop Main Streets is a really, really important one, and this application particularly is on an important mobility corridor, particularly for those seeking to get into the community north of 33rd as they seek to get to King Edward School or South Calgary or the library or the community association and a number of the other amenities that are there. How this building hits the street is an important one. I know the applicant has provided lots and lots of good examples on a number of their other projects. So I ask everybody to lean in, give feedback, and I know that they're proposing live-work units. I have historically and always been a really big supporter of these. I think it allows the opportunity for people to live and work in their community. And we've seen really, really great examples of this, not only in other cities, but also in Calgary. So I'd encourage everybody to think broadly about how the future of work, particularly in COVID times, is going to evolve. I think that this application provides us an opportunity to have a good conversation about that. Thanks so much for giving me the time to say a few words. Hope everybody's well and enjoy your summer.
Hi, I'm Bob Van Wiegen with the Marda Loop Business Improvement Area. Our 150 shops and services are part of the community. People in Marda Loop often work as well as shop in Marda Loop. Our customers, our employees, and our business owners are most often our neighbors. And we want more neighbors, especially within walking distance, to support the health, vitality, and variety of the business district, which provides convenient services and a sort of town center for Marda Loop residents. We are supportive of the city's Main Streets program, which will bring much needed public improvements and beautification to 33rd Avenue as it redevelops. Now, this latest project by Sarina is consistent with the Main Streets vision, and it's at an important corner linking the Main Street to the community center and C-Space at King Edward School. Now, if a historic building could speak to us, King Edward would testify that this neighborhood has changed a lot, and it has always been so. This area was first built a bit sparsely and in a gap-toothed way at the beginning of the 20th century. King Edward School is an icon of that times. We sat quietly at the edge of town until Currie Barracks was developed over there in the 1930s. Our streetcar line became one of the busiest routes, ferrying soldiers at all hours during the Second World War. After the war, the oil boom came and our empty lots finally filled in. Most of Altadore was built in the 1950s. The business district filled in too, including the namesake Marda Theatre. Did you know that Marda Loop is named after that theatre and the streetcar and trolley bus loop that served the area? Now, this neighborhood reached its first population peak in the 60s and early 70s when all those kids from the first wave of post-war homeowners were running around, and that includes me. The first few years of my life were over on 16A Street Southwest. Population declined after that, as kids aged and moved out, but it's once again back to a new peak. How did that happen? Let's fast forward to the 90s, and for some businesses it seemed like the end of the world when the military base moved to Edmonton. But instead, the development of Garrison Woods gave new life to Marda Loop. Now, we all know that Marda Loop is a great area, and because of its popularity, it continues to change and grow with infill development at all scales, from individual homes to multi-unit buildings on our main streets. And the business area has also expanded to meet neighborhood needs. Each wave of change has left a mark on our community character. Marda is historic with icons like King Edward, but we're also mid-20th century modern, and we're at cutting-edge contemporary with new development. We're a residential area and a business area. We are a convenient mix, which is both a contemporary idea and a bit old-fashioned. It's a new old idea. We're close to downtown, but we're not downtown urban. We cling to Crowchild Trail, which takes us quickly to the far-flung suburbs, but we're not suburban either. We're in a sweet spot, a little place of our own on the urban-suburban cusp in the heart of Southwest Calgary. I think that projects like this one and developers like Sarina are helping to define that cusp, and they are definitely part of the latest wave of change, which this time is focused on our main street. In steering through this wave, we should keep our eye on where we're going, focus on quality, think about the big picture, and keep in mind that we are a mix of things, and hopefully the best of these things. Thanks for listening, and shop local.
Hello. Thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. My name is Talisha Wagner and I am with Casola Kappa Architects. And we are so pleased to be a part of this project in such a great neighborhood and pleased to be a part of this presentation today. I'm here to provide an overview of some of the project details and technical aspects and answer any questions regarding the building's design. I'm going to start with accessibility. Since this is a mixed-use development and we have different users accessing different areas at different times and in different ways. The main floor is either retail commercial units or building amenities. The commercial retail units are designed as small-scale, local boutique-style units, and they are accessed by individual entries directly from 33rd Avenue or 16th Street. The residential portion is above the main floor and it consists of 44 residential suites, approximately 40-60 split between 1 and 2 bedroom units. The residential entry is on 16th Street and it is activated with an angled art wall, but it is also recessed to provide a sense of privacy. This entry connects to all of the main floor amenities through the lobby, including the fitness center, lounge, waste and recycling room, and secure bike storage. The landscaping at the ground floor has been designed to provide an inviting public realm and soften the commercial edge of the street. All vehicle access for all users will be from the back lane at the northeast corner with the waste collection area directly adjacent. This location optimizes the length of the lane for increased sight lines and minimizes potential vehicle queues. We have 24 secure bike parking stalls on the interior and public bike parking is located along 33rd Avenue. Loading is proposed on 16th Street in front of the residential entry. This is the parkade plan. There are currently 41 total parking stalls, 29 residential and 12 commercial. The parking has been provided in accordance with the land use bylaw requirement and does not require a relaxation. In terms of the proposed building form, the massing, that is, the physical space that it occupies, the land use bylaw has requirements for step backs at certain heights in relation to lower density residential. In our case, the properties to the east and across the lane to the north. And we have considered this even more carefully than the requirement. The massing of the building has a hierarchy, where the main floor is the lifeblood of the street. It's treated like a public space and scaled to the pedestrian. The upper floors are private residential spaces and start to recess and pull back from the street. This also provides a visual transition and mitigates shadowing effects. On the north side at the lane, the building steps 2.7 meters back above the main floor. The east side of the building steps 6.5 meters back at level 4, so it steps down towards the houses to the east. The northeast portion of the building has been carved out to minimize the impact to the residents of the north of the lane. Finally, the 5th level steps back an additional 3.9 meter on the street sides, producing a 5th floor that's approximately 60% of the base building footprint. From the sidewalk, it would feel more like a 4-story building. But the 5th story affords a greater ability to create a housing or a building form that is more sensitive and responsive compared to a monolithic rectangular 4-story box with protruding balconies. You can move some of the mass to a smaller 5th story and it results
in an articulated form that is less impactful and more aesthetically pleasing. Another benefit is the creation of meaningful outdoor amenity spaces, both shared and private. Privacy to and from these outdoor spaces has been carefully considered through our landscape design. The terraces have been programmed with small gathering spaces that promote looking inward, not out or down into people's yards. Proposed built-in bench seating with privacy screens along the perimeter of the fourth floor terrace and strategically placed vegetation and planters create this feeling of intimacy and enclosure. Although the use of outdoor space is limited in our climate, these shared amenity spaces are meant to promote a sense of community within the building by creating opportunities for residents to meet one another. Regarding shadowing, we are providing an animation here which clearly illustrates the shadowing effects. This image shows the shadowing effects at the equinox, so March and September 21st, the first days of fall and spring. And this animation shows the shadowing on the summer solstice, so June 21st, the longest day of the year. This animation illustrates how the setbacks work to minimize shadow impacts, specifically to the properties on the north. Although the height of the building varies, the proposed maximum height is 20 meters. The design height that we have currently is 17.9 meters on 33rd Avenue and 16.9 meters from grade at the lane side. Finally, this proposal is intended to contribute positively to the main street of Marda Loop, South Calgary and Altadore. We have thoughtfully designed this development to celebrate the character of the community, encourage diversity of small businesses, and create a vibrant destination. We are striving to create a place that is truly livable and adds value to the neighborhood. We look forward to taking feedback from the community and stakeholders and incorporating it into our design so we can make a development that we all feel truly proud of. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. I hope you found the video presentation informative. We're now going to start our Q&A period. If you have any questions, please just type them into the question panel and I will direct them to the appropriate panelists. I think the first one we're going to start off with, and this would be best suited, I think, for Naz and Max. Could you just tell us a little bit more about this engagement session, how it was set up, who was invited, all those sorts of details?
Sure, I'll leave that to you, Max.
Yep. How it was set up, so obviously, we're going through COVID, everyone understands that, and a lot of work these days is online. So in the past, we've had this kind of session in person, whether it be held at C-Space or elsewhere with people, but now obviously we have to do that online. So this is a best practice we've seen from other developers, and the city and the build themselves hold these kind of sessions. So that's how this came to be, if you like. And then as far as I think the question was who and how people were invited. So we distributed postcard flyers to approximately 120 neighbors in about a block radius of the site. We currently have a 4x8 large sign posted on the site with a simple and then those neighbors within that radius that we already have email addresses for were emailed about the event. And then obviously if you're here, you've gone through that process of registering, etc. Hopefully that answers your question.
Great. Okay, our next question would be for Talisha and Tony. Can you please expand on the comment I believe you made in the video, which was, we have considered this more carefully in reference to the shadowing?
Yeah, as probably with regards to the
That massing diagram.
massing versus the proposed massing. Right, so what that means is that the land use allows a certain mass, and what we're proposing is actually less than that massing because we're stepping back the fifth floor. And by stepping back that 5th floor, it creates less of a shadow because it's coming in on an angle. And so by pulling back that top floor, you're actually, the profile of your building is being reduced. And that's what she meant by that.
Yeah, and that carve out on the northeast, like when you look at the city plan, it's like a box. And then our proposal has kind of a canyon in it that specifically helps with the shadow effect.
Which creates that sort of L-shaped massing at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. We're just waiting to see if there's any other questions from the audience. That's it so far. So again, you can just type them in the question area, and we can go from there.
I think Lauren also mentioned earlier, obviously, if there's questions you think of after this or just whenever, then you have my email address already, hopefully from our correspondence in RSVP, but it's max.parish, P-A-R-I-S-H, @sarinahomes.ca if there's any questions following this or at any time.
Great, thanks. And we do have a couple more questions now. I'm just sort of reading them as they come in here. Okay, I guess this one will be for our folks from the city, hopefully. For the commercial main floor, is it possible to limit the discretion of use within the land use change itself, or is this something that would be limited by the condo board when the building is completed?
I can,
Brian, yeah, you want to go ahead.
I could start it. Jared and I are going to tag team these answers. So for that one, there's the regular list of uses that would be within the stock district. If your question is about customizing and excluding some uses, but and having others, that would need to be done through a direct control district, which is kind of like a customized land use bylaw. Now, there's a whole process to do that, and typically our management does not like to create a land use district in a way that is just trying to pick certain land uses over others. That if there's a desire, you know, from a planning commission perspective to do that, we could be directed to go down that road. But at this point in time, we believe that the stock district would be sufficient to provide the land uses that would work in the area.
Great.
Maybe I'll just add that unless we and I haven't gotten any information from Sarina Homes on this, on particularly any preference that they have of certain commercial uses. So at this point, we haven't had a conversation on any sort of specific uses that they have preference to not have or to include in their building. What usually happens is that you have a list of permitted uses in the district and list of discretionary uses, and those discretionary commercial uses will always be advertised, and the community will be aware of those through advertisement, and those uses that are discretionary can be appealed. So that's usually how it occurs when we have development permits. It's not, unless the applicant wants, it's not specifically detailed what type of commercial uses will be in the building until, I guess, a later date. Unless, I don't know if Naz or Max have any comments on what type of commercial uses they envision in the building.
For sure, Jared. You know, the intention is definitely to have businesses that are mainly open during the day and closed early evening. So we see uses such as, you know, office or chiro, physio, massage. Those types of uses is what we are intending to see.
We can also, I think part of the question, Lauren, was about whether that becomes the condo board as well. So there is that element as well. In previous projects and commercial projects that we have within the bylaws, there are clauses about nuisance uses or other uses which are we prohibit. And once that's part of the bylaw, it becomes very hard for the board to change. as well. So there's that layer as well on top of what you've just heard from Ryan, Jeff, and Naz from the outset.
Okay, great. We now have a design question. Will the garbage area be fully enclosed, or is it being designed as just a gated area?
Sorry, we were muted there for a second.
There's a garbage room inside of the building, so it's not like a garbage enclosure, like a separate gated thing. You wouldn't, it'll, from the outside of the building, it'll just look like an overhead door. And then it's just a staging area. So on pickup day, the dump truck will drive into the lane, open up the overhead door, pull the garbage onto the little pad, load it up, put it back in, close it down, and the rest of the time you wouldn't know that that's a garbage room. It's just an overhead door.
Okay, great. And I'm going to combine a couple questions here because they're almost identical. How many people are currently in attendance of the session tonight?
I think unless you have any update, Lauren, I think there's 17 currently.
Yeah.
I know I had about 25 RSPs for the event, so obviously a few people haven't logged in or maybe haven't quite logged in yet, unfortunately, but that's the current status.
Yeah, and we're still at that number, so that's great. Okay, this is a question for Naz and Max. Did it work to implement a schedule with the condo board for garbage collection at Coco? So for example, no pickup on Saturdays prior to 10 a.m.
Max, I mean, you know, I'm not sure what the feedback you've received with sitting on the board with the rest of the homeowners. But from what I understand, I think the pickup process is working out well. You know, they did end up putting the garbage on larger wheels to make it a little bit quicker and easier to access. But how's it been going on the condo board and with the rest of the owners? What's the feedback been?
No, that's correct, Naz. Obviously, at the start, as Sarina, we set up a waste removal contract, and then that was taken on by the board. And to date, so it's been about 7 months now. There's been no issues and things have run smoothly with them.
Okay, great. Next up, how many parking spaces per unit? And that's also a follow-up to that would be, what about visitor parking as well as commercial?
I think, Talisha, you've done the math on that. If you could speak to that, that'd be great.
Sure.
I'll go to the parking
Slide. Yeah, maybe Lauren, could you go to slide number 5?
Sure, just give me a second here. Okay, we have somehow lost that, so just maybe give me a minute on that one.
Sure. So the requirement is for 0.75 stalls per unit and then 0.1 visitor stalls per unit. And that works up to 25 residential and 4 visitor. Oh, because the bylaw has a 25% reduction for being on a major transit route.
and then there's 12 for commercial.
And then there's 12 for commercial. I think the intent is to do some, like maybe Max might have to comment or Naz more on this, but like park share. So that all of these stalls would be available to the resident. And then during the day, they would be the commercial stalls, but we would still have 4 that are reserved specifically for visitor all the time.
Residential.
Residential visitors, yeah.
One of the ideas that that we've seen in other projects is a park share program where, you know, the residents would use the parking stall in the evening and at night, obviously till the morning, and then it would be freed up during the day, And so there is an opportunity for that stall to be vacant from, let's just say, 8 to 5 or 8 to 5:30 during the day. And that's when the commercial tenant or owner could use that space and rent out that stall from the resident. So we have seen this work in other projects, and we think that it's a neat idea for this project.
I feel like I should also add that this is not the DP as it is. This is kind of an illustration of how we can, within this envelope, within one level, make the bylaw requirement. So that this zoning is appropriate for this parcel in the way that we can do that easily. If we needed to provide more parking, if the market demanded it, then we could, or, you know, it's more like an exercise at this point.
Great. Okay, we have another design related question. Is the loading zone in the lane?
Okay. No, the loading zone is proposed on 16th Street.
Okay, and another semi-related question, not so much to the loading zone, but just 1 second here. Okay, this is a question regarding the overlooking. So do the windows from the upper floors overlook homes to the north and the east?
Windows. Well, that will definitely, as we get into a DP application, that type of detail will start coming to the surface as far as the amount of windows on that particular face. And that's typically where that type of issue gets resolved. At this early stage, it's more about the massing of the building as opposed to specifics such as window placement.
I mean, there are windows on all 4 sides of the building. What I have here right now is that there aren't any private balconies that face the east or the north. So the outdoor spaces.
Okay, great. Okay, a clarification question here. Could you remind us how many residential units and how many assigned parking stalls specifically for those units? Is neighborhood parking a concern?
Okay, so number of units.
44.
Right. So the MU1 zone is requires that you have 0.75 per unit, and then another 0.1 for visitor. And that gives us the requirement of 25. Right. And then with commercial, the 12 commercial stalls, we have a total of about 40.
There's 41 stalls total.
Stalls, yeah. That includes everything. Yeah.
So
basically 44 homes and 29 assigned stalls to residential.
Well, 4 of those are visitor. Yeah.
Right.
So it's like 1.6 stalls, or no, opposite.
Yeah.
Great. And while we're on the subject of parking, will there be any electrified parking stalls?
It's a good question. You know, we did offer EV at Coco, and I believe that there was one homeowner that required EV. So there is an option definitely for electric vehicles with outlets, and we've definitely accommodated I believe it's 6, up to 6 or 8 stalls. What Tesla does is they have branches. So as long as you allow one line, I think for every one line you can do 4 cars. And so the idea for us is definitely to supply 2 lines, and then we'll see if the uptake is there from residents.
Okay, great. Okay, this is a question for the city folks. Will the residents of this building be eligible for the permitted parking zone GG?
Jared or Ryan, did you?
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah,
Good
I
question.
think it's more of a transportation question. So I don't know if Ryan knows, but I'm not familiar with that particularly. So we can definitely pass that question along to our.
Yeah, that's definitely a question we'll have to ask our colleague about and respond to.
So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you've provided our email. Well, I think most of the participants.
You've got all that info for sure.
Definitely send forward that question to me, and I can answer that.
Okay, great. When is the construction forecasted to start and forecasted to be completed?
So I would say sometime mid next year is when we're looking to start. And typically construction for this type of project would take, anywhere from 15 to 18 months to complete.
Okay, great. What are the setbacks from 33rd Ave and from 16th Street?
So is the question referring to required setbacks or the physical proposed setbacks?
I'm not sure. They actually didn't clarify. So I guess just answer it as best you interpret it.
So in an MU1 zone, yeah, so in an MU1 zone, the required setback is 0, correct?
Yeah, on the street, yeah.
But we probably will be setting back at least 2, if not 3 meters to create a proper interface.
Well, it depends if we want to have like an arcade. It just depends on our design.
Yeah, and again, that's definitely going to come into play once the GP application gets prepared, and we can have that discussion once that information is available.
Yeah, we've got 2.6, and
but as for an MU1, that's the requirement is 0 setback on the streets.
yeah, we're between 2 and 3.
Okay, and I think this question is asking the number of 1 and 2 bedroom units.
We haven't totally finalized that mix, but I would say it's probably more 60-40, leaning more towards 2 bedrooms.
Okay. And this is more of a statement, but perhaps you may have a comment on it, either Max and Naz, or perhaps the city. We need a solution to contractor parking during the construction phase. We don't want all the contractor vehicles clogging the streets.
Yeah, it's a good point. There was definitely some pain at Coco with respect to, the many trades at certain stages of construction. I think it's a great point, and just off the top of my head, I think there's probably an opportunity to do some parking where the community association is. So usually that lot is empty during the daytime, and that might be a good spot to have parking for our trades while we construct the project.
Okay, I'm just trying to read this question here. Okay, Okay, I think this is a question as it pertains to the use of the loading zone. What if all the stalls are all used? I'm not entirely sure what's being asked here, but you may be able to decode it better than me.
So with the Cocoa development, we got approval. I think again it's via the Transportation Stroke Roads Department of your application to have a timed loading zone on 15th Street, and that's a similar that we will be seeking. I think as Talisha mentioned on 16th Street. So it will be a designated timed loading stall. So again, not entirely sure what the question is, but if it would, that's where it is.
Okay, great.
Proposing the loading stall right now is a driveway, so it doesn't have a negative effect on the number of street parking stalls either, because right now there's a driveway there. We'd be rehabilitating that driveway, and then during the designated time, that would be the spot that you could park, like when people move in.
Right.
They can
It's
park there.
not chewing up an already existing
Street,
on-street parking.
Exactly.
And there's only
Yeah.
one loading stall required, actually. So just to clarify,
Okay.
They have to come back a different time.
or park somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back to setbacks. What are the setbacks in the alley and laneway, proposed versus actual?
Okay.
So the laneway, I think, is to the bylaw, and it's 7.5 meters from the property line of the adjacent neighbor to the north.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think that's the actual. So for the main floor anyways, and then above the main floor, we step back another 1.2 meters or thereabouts.
Mm-hmm. And for the adjacent, then it would be a 3-meter setback, and then
Yes.
above 5 meters height, you would have to step back further.
Yes.
Okay.
At a 45-degree angle. There's a slide, I think it's maybe number 8.
Right. Slide number
11.
11. Yeah. Slide number 11, if you can bring that up,
Yeah.
Lauren.
There we go.
And this is the maximum envelope showing on everything.
So this is what the bylaw, the MU1 bylaw would allow. So the top one is obviously looking at the building from 33rd Avenue, and you see 16th Street on your left, and then the neighboring property on your right, and how the setbacks would impact both. And then the one below that shows how the setbacks interface with the lane, the properties on the other side of the lane, and of course, 33rd.
Okay, great. This is a question for Naz. Will you start construction of this building before the Harrison is completed in 2022? Because you mentioned that this will start mid-2021.
Yeah, the intention is to start mid next year, so there will definitely be some overlap with the Harrison.
Okay, and this isn't directly related to this project, but it is related to Cocoa, whether or not the issue with the windows was resolved.
The issue with the windows.
Yeah.
Do you mind asking for some clarification?
Sure, we can wait on that and move on to another question. Will the back lane be accessible for homes to the north during construction?
The back lane should be definitely accessible for the homeowners on the north side. Definitely, there are some times where we are doing work close to the lane, especially with utility, where we may have to close it for, a certain period during the day. But in terms of, closure for 2 to 3 days. Sometimes if we're working on the driveway or on the apron, that was the case where we had to shut down that entry. So definitely causing some inconvenience for a few days. But for the most part, no. I mean, the lane should be, should be accessible, with, aside from some of the construction related items that are close to the lane.
Okay, great. And somewhat related, I'm not sure if this was exactly covered. Will the back lane be accessible? Oh, sorry, I'm reading the same question again. Is access to the parkade directly across the laneway garage access of the neighbor to the north?
If you want to pull the slide that shows the site plan, that may answer that question.
About the third or fourth one line.
No, it's like
It straddles
the
two
property.
properties, yeah. So the parkade entrance actually straddles. Okay, that's a separate parcel. This is one parcel like this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so it doesn't directly face it. It's like property line and it's in the middle.
We know what slide that is?
Oh,
Slide number 2.
2.
So I guess, I'm not sure if that helps clarify for the question asker, but.
I mean, that's more than 7.5 meters back too.
It's like an additional 10 feet back from the main building face.
15 feet.
Okay. Okay, this is kind of, I'm going to combine a couple questions here. A couple people are wondering if some of these slides will be available online after. I'm not sure if that's something we'd want to email out or if it's going to be posted along with the video.
Definitely, that's our intention.
Okay. And I think at that point, that's all the questions we have, unless anybody has anything else they want to, any of our panelists have anything else they want to say, or anybody has any last minute questions from the audience, but we seem to be out of them. Going once. Okay, I think we're good. Oh, wait, we have one last question. There we go. That's more of a comment. I think the participant is looking for a reduction in height. So that's more of a comment.
For sure. I mean, this is something we've, really thought long and hard. And it's something that we initially proposed with Coco as well, but we feel that the height is appropriate and within the Main Street's vision. And we think that this is a more articulated building that is more sensitive with shadowing than a 4-story kind of wider block type building. We definitely have studied the shadow studies and have presented it, in this presentation. Yeah, we've thought long and hard about that to try to make it as sensitive, and we think it's even more sensitive than our 4-story building.
Okay, and I think to finish things off, we have a little bit of clarification on that earlier Coco window question. Okay, so the comment was made that overlooking windows to the neighboring properties was not a concern at this stage of the process. And I'm curious if the same issue was resolved in the later stages of the development of the Coco building.
I recall definitely on the 15th Street side, where the neighbor across the street to us had some concerns and issues related to the balcony glass, as well as the windows as well. Jared, I don't know if you remember the you know, that neighbor or that situation when we were initially proposing Coco. I think what we ended up doing on the 15th Stride is we ended up frosting the railing along the 15th Street side. That was important, and that was our response to that feedback. And I think we also responded with windows as well with respect to placement. You know, one of the things that we were able to do along the lane, you know, with windows for privacy is we tend to set the windows higher and more horizontal. So it's very difficult to kind of peer down and see neighbors or anything like that. So it kind of solves a lot of the privacy issue, and it also solves gaining light into the room. So that's a good play for sure, which we will definitely consider.
Okay, great. Okay, and this is just more of a comment. I much prefer the 5 stories or stores with the appropriate cutouts for shadowing rather than a 4-story box on box. I appreciate the fact that they're still able to get the profit for units that make it great for neighbors. That's good feedback. And other than that, I don't see any other questions. Okay, so that being said, I think we're probably good to wrap up. Thank you everybody for coming. If there's further questions or you think of something after this is done, feel free to reach out to Max at max.parish@sarinahomes.ca. Otherwise, I hope everybody's staying cool and have a great evening.
Thanks, Lauren. Okay.
Thanks, Lauren. For the attendees.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Is the session ended, Lauren? It's Max.
Yeah, we have just a few people exiting now, so.
Yeah, just want to say thanks so much for all your hard work, and it was a great session.
Great.
Yeah, this is my first online engagement, and I think it, yeah, it was really cool.
Yep, thanks to Ryan and Joe for attending.
All right, thanks.
All right, guys.
Okay, see you later.
Yeah.